Chapter 20. The boys circle about, not sure of him, though Doc has come running, as he has done each time, at the sound of the horse, his own motion far ahead of his earthly feet. The moment he spies Mason, stopping short and gazing intently. "Hello, all well, Papa?" "Why, yes," alighting. "Hello, Dr. Isaac. How's everyone faring here?" "Oh, we're all good." He reaches up without hesitation to take Mason's hand, and they go in. Today Mason is patient, and by the two have settled inside his slackened perimeter. They live with their Aunt Hester, Mason's sister, and her husband, Elroy. Mason, having ridden up to the house prepared spiritually for disrespect, recrimination, bad coffee, also finds Delicia Quall, the clothier's daughter, in a colourful pongee gown, at least an order of magnitude too riotous for any casual visit in these parts. Before long it is distressingly clear that she suffers from that uncontrolled need to be a bride, known to physicians as nymphomania, in whose cheerful frenzy nuances vanish, and every unattached man is a potential husband. "You're young enough," she ticks off item by item. "Your sons need a mother, and I've been tending children all my life. I can bake a Sally Lunn whose aroma alone is guaranteed to add inches to any waistline, even one as trim as your own, Charlie Mason. My puddings are legend, even in Painswick. I was brought up in the Anglican faith, and with enough spirits to drink am said to be a merry companion. What were you looking for, exactly, in a second wife?" "Licia, a joy seeing you again. Till this instant I wasn't aware I was looking. Yet I must have been, mustn't I?" At this moment, were he attending, he might have heard from the direction of St. Kenelm's churchyard a certain subterranean rotation. "What a faraway soul you can be, Mr. Mason," she smiles effortfully. "Must I instruct you that 'tis universal upon this planet for a young widower to seek a new wife as soon as decency permits, even wait an extra day if he's shy?" "Thank'ee. So I have heard and keep hearing from so many well-wishers, were I not under unbreakable obligation." "To whom? The Royal Society, a room full of men in wigs droning away in the candlelight? That where you'd rather be than home at the hearth with your next wife and little ones? And the custard ruined? How could you?" To a parent self-persuaded, she draws back from him. "What sort of night-crawling creature are you, then?" "Oh, be a friendly girl," prays Mason. "I am not dramatizing at the moment, Charles. Kiss me right now, sweetheart." "Twittering London fop," she snarls, making to go off. The boys come running in. "Aunt Licia, don't go!" She gathers them in, flashing Mason a "there you see" smirk over their small nuzzling heads. "The time you took for your long sea journey might be excused as a remedy for excessive grief. But you're back now, aren't you? Not entirely, for now there's something else up, so I may be off again, and fairly soon. What? Shrieks Hester. Where to now? There's no work in England? You had a secure job at Greenwich once. What happened to that? Times change, Hetty. I enjoyed that post by way of the Newcastle gang, who languish now at political death's door. New sorts of Whig control the appointments. Bradley's gone. That's it. Yet he will not whine, not in front of the boys. Nor may anyone round here even recognise the name. The pay's said to be good. Were I you, advises Delicia Quall, I should stick to the matter of the longitude, for that is where the money's at. You have studied the question. True that in the short term there'll be plenty of almanac work, lunars being the only practical method at sea right now, and much cheaper than any timepiece. But soon enough, sturdier offspring of Mr. Harrison's watch will be showing their noontide faces all about the fleets, and lunars will have had their day. The best we wretched lunarians can ever hope for is to share the prize, which will prove at last a tart cut too many ways to satisfy any. The real fees nowadays, Leisha, are to be earned abroad. For the first time, real money is finding its way into astronomy. Public funds paying for entire expeditions. It ages me to recall that Bradley, in discovering the aberration, was obliged to rely upon the generosity of those nobility who shared his passion for the stars. An opening for someone at least to offer condolences. None does. Where is it this time, Charlie? Asks his sister Anne, but turned 17 and eager to be out of the house where she's an unpaid, round-the-clock menial. There are only rumours, nothing's decided. Papa! Cries the demonic Dr. Isaac. Tell us, sir, pipes William, their eyes so round and unwavering. Mason drops his head. America. This is greeted with an uproar, as everyone seeks to comment at once. For God's sake, Charles Hester, in piercing disbelief. You were lucky to come back alive once. The odds are well against you now. You might be thinking of these two for a change. Whilst the boys thump about and shout snakes, bears, Indians and the like, and the tea kettle whistles furiously upon the stove, and no one attends. Whilst the feminine gales rage all about, Alroy draws Mason aside, offering a pipeful of Virginia. This job in America, you'll be stargazing again. They want boundary lines, hundreds of miles long, as perfect as they can get 'em. For that, someone must take latitudes and longitudes, by the stars. And you'll be some time away, I imagine. I never meant the lads to be a burden on you, or Hester. I can see poor Annie's running night and day. Christ, they're enormous. I don't even know them. And the next time you see them, years again, Charles, I esteem them as mine, for in this house all get the same porridge, out of the same pot. You are off travelling more than you're here, whilst we'd be happy to take 'em, in which case you'd have to sign over. Ah, never! Then there would be another price. that you might not wish to pay. He knows, roughly, what it is and waits dumb as a stone. When they're of age, they'll both be apprenticed to your father at the mill. Standard 7-year contracts. He'll reimburse us till then, and we could well use that help, Charles. Why isn't he telling me this? I represent your father in this matter. You? You're a lawyer? No, yet everyone needs representation from time to time. If you go to America, you'll be hearing all about that, I expect. A wonderful dilemma. Meanwhile, more or less distant relations proceed through the day to come at him from all directions, unerring as swifts, pointing fingers, shaking fists, brandishing sticks, all with reasons he ought to stay in Sapperton, vividly recalling to Mason reason upon reason why, 2 years ago, he was happy to leave all this. Back then, of course, he had his grief. But time has gone on, and absent the force majeure that drove them, stunned, together for an instant to agree, for the same service now there will be a price. The boys, up since before dawn, mumbly on the floor with fatigue, lurch over to kiss him good night as if he has never been away, and every night they have been kissing him so. As ever, he is surprised by the fierceness of their bodies, their inability to hold back, the purity of the not yet dishonest. 'Twould take a case harder than Mason not to struggle with tears of sentiment. His relations look on, variously grimacing, sneering, or pretending not to see, all recalling his difficulties, in particular with Dr. Isaac, and even touching his sons. I am ever afraid they'll draw away, he confesses to his little sister Anne, sitting in the kitchen drinking coffee after the boys have gone off to bed. Who would not be? Willie doesn't remember me. Doc is too little. And what has Hester been telling them about their father? That you'd be home soon, says Anne. That you were away upon a mission for the king, but that soon you would be with them again. Whilst she's selling them to their granddad, what else are we to do? He must talk with his father about this. I am 34, he tells himself, riding over at a morose trot. Whence come these rectal flashes? What's the worst he'll do, assault me with a day-old cob loaf? It is further possible that Elroy is making the whole thing up as part of some elaborate extortion scheme, wagering that Mason will never be able to verify it. No, that's not quite it, his father pretends to explain. I said that as I'd been paying some of their upkeep all along, all the time their father's been off touring the Tropic Isles, why the least I ought to have's a lien on their services when they're old enough to work. Young Elroy never knows when I'm joking. Well, were you? What? Was I what? Paying? Of course I was paying. When am I ever not? No one else in this family has any money but by me. I'm the one soon or late you all come to. I meant, were you joking? His smile suggests, soon I shall be unable to hear anything you say, and then I'll have escaped you at last. Among ye, but not of ye. How did you know about the job in America? The baker knows everything. They don't know in London. When I heard that your protector had died, I knew. Shouting back and forth as if above the sound of the wind of time. I don't see the connection. I know. Do you recall that I warned you of Sam Peach? You said he was not my friend. And was he? When you went to visit? How'd your particular friend treat you? Of course his father would have heard about it, how he was turned away. That must have been his only reason for granting this audience. Gloat? Mason inquires in a quieter, everyday voice. Having a nice gloat over it, are we? How admirable! No wonder I've turned out this way. The elder Mason smiles at him without warmth. You're a fool, he shouts. Stay or go. 'Twill be me who ends up getting them both. I'm the neck of the great family funnel round here, ain't I? Were you planning to come into work today? Though 'tis not the first time Mason has been so berated, yet he reflects, the cob loaf would have been kinder. In fact, far from the ogre or troll that his son makes him out to be, Charles Senior is a wistful and spiritual person. He believes that bread is alive, that the yeast animalcula may unite in a single purposeful individual, that each loaf is so organized, with the crust, for example, serving as a skin or carapace, the small cavities within exhibiting a strange complexity, their pale walls to apparent smooth proving, upon magnification, to be made up of even smaller bubbles, and one may presume so forth, down to the limits of the invisible. The loaf, the indispensable point of convergence upon every British table, the solid British quartern loaf is mostly, like the soul, emptiness. Wait till you've had the dough in your hands, Charlie, when they could yet talk without restraint, and feel how warm, like flesh, how it gives off heat. And if you set a loaf aside in a dark, quiet place, it will grow. Is it alive? Young Mason had not wished to ask. Yes. A silence. Would you like to have a go at some kneading then? Weary more than patient, he expected the boy to say no, but as if the images of flesh so intrigued him that he must plunge his hands into the carnescent mass. Young Mason presently did go to work at his father's ovens. Mornings of cock crows in the dark, far up in the little valleys and echoing from the stones of town. Horses astir, stable lads and serving girls curling and turning on the earth floors, travellers dreaming, wives awakening. Young Mason kept thinking he could see dawn up the street, but dawn had not quite touched the vale. His father worked beside him, in light from two lanthorns, liquid softened by years of flour dust baked onto the reflectors, watching his son in quick pulses of attention, but aware even so that the lad would rather be someplace else. In the next months he would speak about duties to Charlie, who'd go along with it, though pulled at, the miller could tell, by something else, pulled away from the silent loaves and the rumbling stones, out to London, the stars, the sea, India. Go ahead then, Charles, his mother and damsel would call from some place unseen. Talking to me? The baker kneading without breaking his rhythm, or the little stargazer, putting in what scorn he could afford. Mason, hands in the dough, watched his father openly, feeling the pain in his arms, the pale mass seething with live resistance. Hungry people's invention to fill in for times of no meat, and presently a succedaneum for the Lord's own flesh. The baker's trade terrified the young man. He learned as much of it as would keep him going, but when he began to see into it, the smells, the unaccountable swelling of the dough, the oven door like a door before a sacrament, the daily repetitions of smell and ferment and some hidden drama as the Mass. Was he fleeing to the repetitions of the sky, believing them safer, not as saturated in life and death? If Christ's body could enter bread, then what else might? Might it not be as easily haunted by ghosts less welcome? Alone in the early empty mornings, even for a few seconds with the mute white rose, he was overwhelmed by the ghostliness of bread. What is it you think I do then, when I'm staring at the sky in the middle of the night? He stands there as if hanging under a sack of flour, hanging, waiting, as if his father might stop work and begin to chat with him. The baker cocks an eyebrow. Whatever it is, he doesn't understand it, yet hesitates to start the lad a jabbering again. Is it his wits? Slow-wittedness runs among the damsel's side, of course, has for centuries. But how can his son so imperfectly grasp the nature of work? Doesn't he even understand that he has to sleep sometimes? In fact, young Mason nods all the time, more than once with a risen raw loaf for a pillow, his ear flowed into intimately by the living network of cells, which seems, just before he wakes, he insists he wasn't dreaming, to contrive in some wise, directly in his ear canal, to speak to him. It says, "Remember us to your father." What happens to men sometimes, his father wants to tell Charlie, is that one day, all at once, they'll understand how much they love their children, as absolutely as a child gives away its own love, and the terrible terms that come with that. And it proves too much to bear. And they'll not want it, any of it, and back away in fear. And that's how these miserable situations arise, in particular between fathers and sons. The father too afraid, the child too innocent. Yet if he could but survive the first onrush of fear and be blessed with enough time to think, he might find a way through. Hoping Charlie might have looked at him and asked, "Are you and I finding a way through?" He keeps trying. "'Tis all one thing. From field to millstone to oven, all part of bread, a proceeding. There'd be naught to knead or bake without this." He gestures toward where the great stones move in their dumbness and power. The grinding, the rising, the baking, at each stage it grows lighter. It rises not only in the pans, but from the earth itself, being ground to flour, as stones are ground to dust, from that condition taking in water, then being filled with air by yeasts, finding its way at last to heat, rising each time, d'ye see, until it be a perfect thing. Picking up a loaf and holding it to his face. Young Mason thinks he is about to eat it. End of chapter.